The Calgary-based Friends of Science gathered at the Canyon Meadows Golf Club to celebrate their 10th anniversary. Friends of Science is dedicated to the objective review of climate science. They provide insight into climate science. Friends of Science dispute the commonly accepted theory that the use of fossil fuels will lead to catastrophic global warming.
None of the predictions that have been made have actually been proved. There's no evidence that it's warming. There's no evidence that there's an increase in storms and tornadoes, hurricanes, any of that.
Most members are retired professionals, graduates in earth and atmospheric sciences. They rely on the scientific method, not computer simulations of the IPCC.
In science, you don't prove things with computer simulations. There's a very strict scientific method to which a theory has to answer in order to be credible.
Friends of Science sends out a regular newsletter disputing popular climate science myths, like this one.
There continues to be a lot of misinformation being spread, which we need to counter with the facts. For example, we're often hit with the statements that 97% of scientists agree that man-made global warming is a problem. When we looked into the numbers and how they arrived at that, we found that it was a manipulation of data. Out of 10,000 requests that were sent out, they handpicked 87 or something like that made up the 97%. And this was only in the United States. They didn't survey anybody else anywhere else in the world.
I was convinced that the IPCC was on pretty shaky ground, and I'm now totally convinced, as probably all of you are. But the thing is that obviously the battle is not over. We saw the other day when the leaders were up, and potential leaders were up in Edmonton, and when Danielle Smith said that she thought the debate was not over, she got hooted and kind of, I mean, it was totally unreasonable behavior on the part of the audience, but it tells us that most of these people out there really haven't got the message yet.
I made up a bunch of slides and I gave a talk to the mountain guys at the spring training sessions. And I was really surprised in a way. I thought, when I did it, I thought, boy, you know, I'm waving a red flag, because these guys are green and very much devoted to nature. And it was just the opposite. I was quite surprised. After it was over, all of them came up and congratulated me and said, obviously this was the sort of thing they had been seeing all their life.
Member Neil Hutton has published over a dozen papers on the topic.
The claim that CO2 is warming the atmosphere is incorrect, and it's perfectly clear that it's been far higher than it is today in the past without any bad effects.
And there's growing support for the Friends of Science position.
This week, 49 former NASA employees came out strongly saying, we believe the claims by NASA that man-made carbon dioxide is having a catastrophic impact on global climate change are not substantiated, and goes on to say it damages the reputation of science itself.
And what of flip-flops in the world of climate science?
Background, I graduated from the University of British Columbia in 1978. At that time, my professors were telling us about the catastrophe coming with global cooling.
Friends of Science has two websites. One is for the science-minded professional, and a second site called Climate Change 101 is designed for the general public. They point out that this issue has already had significant financial consequences for society, with no benefit to the environment.
It's going to be pointed out that we've already spent $1 trillion worldwide on this nonsense, and that bloody well's got to stop.
And Friends of Science seek a scientific debate, not scare tactics.
You know, it really upsets me as a grandfather to see my grandchildren come home crying from school because they have been listening to the Al Gore mythical message that we're all going to die. Yeah, we're all going to die, but not due to climate change.
Friends of Science, celebrating 10 years of providing insight into climate change.